like, okay, the people giving a shit, trying to get mad about that stuff to me is like somewhat over, other than like a tiny corner of the internet.
I hope you're right.
I know, that's why I kind of want to see what you thought of that.
Well, my thing is like I hate this argument like Leah Thomas, the swimmer person, you know, and everybody's like, oh, when do you care about women swimming? And I'm like, when this unprecedented thing that never happened before happened, and
when
it's
it
all over
becomes
the
the
news,
number one thing,
you know, it's like, 9/11. When did you care about skyscrapers? What, when a fucking plane flew into one, you retard? I hate that argument. When do you care about bicycling? I'm like, well, Lance Armstrong's on drugs, and he started fucking Sheryl Crow and jizzed on her tits and gave her breast cancer. That's when I started caring about cycling.
That is a good point.
And I don't even care about it. I just care about this exact news story and this exact swimmer.
When did you start caring about also, on top of that, when did you start caring about the one news story that everyone tells you you're not allowed to talk about, even though you're a comedian?
Yeah, and it's such a common sense thing where we're basically being forced to say, like, if you disagree that you're like, oh, there's no difference.
Right,
and you're like, come on.
Well, I'm not even mad about that shit.
Like,
you can swim. I don't give a fuck who's swimming.
Don't tell me not to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. So the trans stuff, I saw a bunch of tweets like, can one comic not talk about trans? Geez, we have to talk. And it's like, well, why does it bother you? Trans people exist. So do toothbrushes and dogs and cars. We talk about that. They just are very popular right now. So why wouldn't we talk about it?
And it's like the linchpin like issue of like between the two arguments or whatever. Yeah, legitimately it is like the number one thing that defines like how you fucking interface with the world right now.
Yes.
Which is so crazy because only maybe like 10% of people actually believe that it's probably fine. Like there's only honestly,
a whole other argument.
Well, honestly, there's like 80% of people or whatever. There's some huge percentage who are like just not commenting.
Yes.
Like you just will not get their commentary on it, and then. But there's probably only really 10% of people who are like, yeah, that should be totally not an issue.
Sure, and I have 2 trans bits in my new hour, and they're not knocking trans, they're not support. It's just a bit about trans.
Yeah, me too,
It's like a neutral bit. And then you see these tweets, and you're like, can I not do a neutral bit about a thing that is a huge talking point? I hate that argument. It's like when people go like, airplane humor, and you're like, well, I got molested on a plane, you know, so I can't I can't talk about it because this plane cliche thing.
It's technically a molestation joke.
Yes, but it happened on a Delta flight. God damn it. I think people are just getting so comedy savvy that you know that they're actually learning what is the hack stuff. What they think is hack is like hack to be called hack. We've gone like 8 levels deep now. But like,
you know, you're so right. It's like it's a very like, it's just saying like, oh, the way that this guy like dunks, that's not way. It's like, yeah, except for that guy can do it. Like, you know what I mean?
Right. Like Louis has a lot of brilliant airplane shit. Like the whole thing about Wi-Fi on the plane and like how he's mad it didn't work. That's a brilliant joke. But if he said, oh, it's an airplane joke, maybe I should pull it away.
If anything, it's the opposite where you're just like, oh, like doing like a brilliant bit on like one of the most shredded topics is like a double axle.
Right.
Sometimes.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
Exactly. So true.
Yeah, you're like, you have a portion of the audience that's comedy savvy is like, oh, an airplane bit. And then after those people were like, fuck, that was a good airplane bit. It's like, yeah, you pulled off like it's the same thing as someone being like, oh, really? You're going to talk about this? And then you make them laugh about it.
I saw, Jeff Asmus.
Yeah, I love Jeff.
Funny guy. He had this bit about participation trophies. And I was like, I heard the set. I was like, here we go.
And he tricked you.
And he flipped it with a brilliant
I love that.
Twist about black like, oh yeah, well you had a real trophy. You'd have to play against black athletes.
Yeah.
Like, never heard that take. Great bit. Well done.
And also then you can use the fact that they have, like there is a take that everyone's heard. Kids didn't get participation trophies. Everyone already has that in their head, and you can use that energy to like sling it back at them.
A little jujitsu.
Yeah,
for sure. Because they're like expecting something too.
Yeah, so you're able to do the opposite of what's expected because everyone already has like a thing in their head that they think you're gonna, and then you don't say it.
It's a misdirect. Yeah, completely.
Yeah, of course. So like, yeah, those culturals, anything that like becomes hack also has an imprint in people's heads that you can mess with.
Yes, exactly. Louis is the best at that, where he'll be like, I saw 2 kids on a crying on an airplane, and he's like, they were crying because gays can get married now. And you're like, you thought he was going to talk about the crying, how it's annoying, but he flipped it to that, and you're like, man, that's a great joke.
Norm had did you watch Norm's Zoom special?
Yeah.
Or whatever, he had the one with the flight attendants where he's like, what do you call a male flight attendant? And you're like, remember? And you're all like, what's the word for it? And you're all thinking like a slur or whatever. And he's like,
yeah.
I can't remember exactly the joke, but it was like I was like, that's so funny.
What was the punchline? You don't remember?
I don't remember.
I think he's like, oh, they're called gay.
Yeah,
or something
he's like
that.
you were expecting like in your head like you were saying like queer or something crazy, and he's like, no, they're called stewards or something.
Yeah, he flipped it.
He's like, wait, what did you? And he's like, what did you think I was gonna say?
Yeah, I like those. Yeah. Well, you make them think the thing that you want them to think anyway.
Which is pretty high level comedy because you have to know what they're gonna think and then figure that out and then change it enough to where it doesn't.
And then that was over Zoom. That was like just to his front-facing camera.
I know. That was sad. I like bummed me out watching that because I'm such a huge.
Where'd
fan.
you watch it?
I just watched it at home on Netflix.
Yeah, they did. Some comics in New York did like a viewing. You know, T.J. Miller. Mm-hmm. He did like a big viewing party, and a bunch of people did it, and it was like pretty cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you like watched it with people, and people were laughing and stuff like that.
And it killed. I remember watching that too. I was like, I don't know if this is.
Yeah.
I just was the whole time. I'm like, I don't know. And then I watched it. I was like, that was surprisingly.
It was
good.
cool to watch with people.
That's the crazy thing about comedy. It's. I always say comedy is like an orgy where everybody's got to be into it, or it doesn't work. Because I've seen shit. Because you can say the same jokes, the same cadence to two different rooms, and they have totally different reactions. And that's so strange about comedy. It's so frustrating. Because like basketball, you throw a ball in, it goes in the hoop, you get 2 points. Comedy, you got a killer joke that works all the time, can just not work one crowd.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating, but I guess that's also what's kind of beautiful about it. Is it like it's a moment in time.
It would be too mechanical if it worked the same every time.